Did you know 80% of minority entrepreneurs' businesses fail within the first 18 months, often due to systemic barriers like lack of access to funding, limited mentorship opportunities, and structural inequalities? However, these numbers don't tell the full story. By addressing these myths and understanding the facts, we can unlock real opportunities for success and resilience in our communities. Let's explore the truth behind the numbers and how we can collectively support Black and minority business owners. It's time to change the narrative. Who are you? What do you do? What do you want the people to know?
My name is Barnard Sims. My pen name is Barnard the Barber. I'm an author and activist in our community. I'm also a philanthropist through a nonprofit called Reach One Chess in our community. Well, we use chess to encourage our youth to make better decisions. I started as a barber in the community, and everything else that I do springs from that.
So can you share your journey as a Black entrepreneur and barber in a small town state of Georgia? How did you start your business and get it up off the ground? And how long have you been doing it?
Well, I started my business basically out of necessity. Being in a rural area, there was like no barbershops around here, and I wanted my hair cut like Bobby Brown with the high right, low left, and there was no place for me to do it in town. And so it basically spurned my creativity out of necessity. I went to Sears and bought me a pair of those cheap clippers, and I came home and I messed my head up, and but I kept trying. So it started out with people seeing my hair like, oh God, who cut your hair? To, oh man, I like, who cut your hair? And then they wanted me to cut their hair. So because we're in a desert for basically services like that in our community, which is usually started by Black people in the hair care industry. That's usually our first encounter with Black businesses in that lane because we're used to working on each other's hair. And so I started my business like in 1990. I want to go back to when I started like in the 80s in my mom's basement. It started back then, but I officially moved to this location in 1996. And we've been here ever since. It's been a blessing, been challenging, but it's also been a blessing and to be able to interact with the community.
What are some of the obstacles you had to overcome in order to have a sustainable business as a Black person?
Some of the challenges that we face as Blacks in general, but in business in particular, is what I wrote about in my book called Combative Economics. How we engage each other as far as when it comes to businesses. People, I can tell you how many people come in here in Cadillacs and they want they want a discount on a haircut or something. And I understand we are, economically challenged, but Black people in general, we spend I think the projection is $1.8 trillion a year in other aspects. But then when it comes to each other, we want to shortchange each other. And we can't really address the issue of wanting reparation for the work our ancestors did when we're unwilling to pay each other for the work we see each other doing every day. And so that's one of the challenges as being in a Black business is establishing that respect for each other in our prospective lines of work and encouraging each other economically, which means if I go to Longhorns and I'm willing to tip them 18 to 20% without even thinking about it, then I go to the barbershop and because it's Barnard the Barber, I want a discount. So that's not treating each other fair and equally. So we have to address that issue up front, have those conversations because we have power, but sometimes we just give away our power by the way we treat each other.
There's a turning point where okay, this business is going to work. Like, okay, it's working. I'm able to pay my bills, and then I'm also able to pay other people. How did you make that happen? What was that turning point for you?
For me, it's because I'm a pretty basic guy. I'm not very frugal. And I'm blessed, well, for when I started out, I had, family that willing to help me and those kind of things. But when I knew it was going to work, it was because, again, we was in a area where there wasn't any competition at that time, and there was a need for it. And so I used to go to church, and I would see, all the deacons and everybody in the church. Where I was like artists in New York looking at his art on trains going around, and I started to say, "Hey, I cut the deacon's hair, I cut the guys who was singing this hair, I even cut the preacher's hair." And I started looking at my work like billboards, just parading around town, and it became overwhelming because we was in Barrett County was a desert. There was no other barber in town. So we had people coming from Jackson County, some from Clark, Oconee, and coming here to meet at this small location right here in the big town, or small town of Statham, Georgia. So it was overwhelming for portion of my business here. So I had to incorporate hiring other people. I love that aspect of it, is to hire other people. People don't look at entrepreneurs like businesses like this. We inspire other people, and we also encourage, mentor, and then they get to a certain level and they want to go off and start their own business. And I encourage that because I wanted to start my own business. It's a thing to where each one teach one is the philosophy in business. And so that's sort of like where I come from, as far as like, I wanted to be an entrepreneur to inspire others to be entrepreneurs, because I know that with some of our realities in our community, with the school to prison pipeline, there's places that won't even look at people who look like us and give them an opportunity or a second chance at life. And I just appreciate a chance to be able to do that for somebody else, because people did it for me.
What are some skill sets do you think that someone needs in order to have a successful business? Because you've been in business for like over 20 years now.
Some of the skill sets I think I've had to work on as far as being in business, because I'm sort of a loner, like to be by myself, go somewhere and write. But I'm having to develop like more people skills and being able to interact and have conversations with people sometimes in our community. Sometimes there's some hard conversations that we need to have, especially in a public space like a barbershop. We always say it takes a village to raise a child, and in the barbershop, sometimes that means, well, we just gonna take little Billy and Ray Ray over there at the barbershop and drop them off, and then they ain't behaving at home, but I'm expecting Barnard to be able to manage cutting hair and manage Billy and Ray Ray, who trying to break out his window, and then Barnard is not supposed to say anything. And so it does take a village to raise a child, but it does help when those lessons start in the hut. And sometimes I had to have those conversations with parents. Little Billy and Ray Ray trying to break out my window. And sometimes what happens when I have those conversations is I'm in trouble and not Billy and Ray Ray for breaking out my window. And so we have to hold each other accountable and be able to say that in a nice, loving, and respectful way. So having to develop those people skills that maybe when I was growing up, when we were trying to break out somebody's window, we was in trouble. Our parents didn't play that. And so now we have to use our words and be able to say it in a nice way. And hopefully, people can receive it and hold each other accountable to do better if we expect our kids to be better.
What did you have to do in order to sustain your business for this long?
Well, the blessing for me is I owned the property, and when I started out, so therefore I had something I could use as collateral to get along. Because being honest, in the 90s when I applied for the loan, I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have this. I didn't even have a stream of revenue that I had been reporting, because I was cutting hair in my mom's basement for $5 a haircut. So I didn't really have, where I could show this amount of income was going to come in. I basically went to the bank with just collateral, which it was a blessing and benefit. Now, after being in business, I know that that's not the way it's supposed to go. But for me, that's how it worked initially for me to get started. Now we have to have a plan. We have to be able to show that we can pay back the loan or be able to bring in the resources to pay back the loan. I have to say I've been fortunate enough to where when I did start the business, because we was in such a desert where there wasn't any competition and there wasn't somebody providing the service I was providing, I was able to sustain and maintain my business for all these years and being frugal. You know, when I would get a blessing of financial surplus, I didn't go out and buy a Cadillac with spinning rims on it. You know, I would still walk to work or ride my bike. I mean, we used to say it was cheap, but now we call people like that frugal. Just being financially responsible and taking care of what needs to be taken care of first, and let the wants and needs wait, or maybe not be fulfilled at all if it's a want instead of a need.
How can the community or the government play a role in supporting entrepreneurs?
We need to have access to more capital, and there need to be more consideration in the fact that, you know, some of us don't come from a realms of privilege. Like my experiences in now working on being in the nonprofit world and applying for grants through these foundations, and when we see they have diversity and equity programs and they get black faces in these places, when we get those black faces in those places, we can't shrink to the opportunity we have to make changes in our community. For instance, if I'm starting a chess program, which is trying to, you know, activate the mind of our youth so that they can go on and make better decisions in life and not become dependent on programs to sustain them. My goal, like, is to stop the school to prison pipeline and to develop a school to purpose pipeline and use chess as a tool to do that. And so when you talk like that, and I'm talking like that to the boards, and it's like, man, that sounds good, but then I get overlooked for grant or a loan. But then I see like other people in the community say, hey, we want to have a giveaway at Christmas time and feed hungry people, which is good. But that's just feeding a person once a year. And so I would like to see more input and more focus on developing programs into questioning why people are hungry in the first place anyway, instead of just feeding them one time at Christmas. I know we always used to say, you teach a man to fish, he eat for a lifetime. If you give a man a fish, he eat for a day. And so that's why I would like to see more focus on questioning why people are hungry in the first place and develop systems to keep them from being hungry all year.
What advice would you give an aspiring entrepreneur that want to start their business? What is one tip that you think that you could give?
The one piece of advice I would give to anybody who's starting a business is it only takes one yes to overcome 1,000 no's. But it's trying to overcome those stereotypes. There's a world of no's and doors waiting to slam in our faces. It only takes one yes from the right space to overcome all those 1,000 no's. And we just have to go places where we are appreciated and not just tolerated. And that's why I'm so appreciative of Athens Market and Athens Anti-Discrimination, because I'm from rural America where the things I'm saying make a lot of sense in this space. But when I walk out of this building and go to the corner store right up the street, Billy Bob, that what I'm saying don't make sense to Billy Bob. So, and that's weighing on a man's mental health. Like, I know this is right, but why am I being treated like this is wrong? So that's why I'm so grateful for spaces like this to give voice to the voiceless and to help us to be able to recognize that there are spaces where we appreciate it and not just tolerate it.
Being an entrepreneur can be a difficult yet an inspiring journey, and I know that it's not for everyone. But if you desire to own your own business, I want to encourage you to never give up on your dreams. Never give up on your dreams, because through perseverance and commitment, you can turn your dreams into reality. And for everyone else that is watching this video wondering, what can I do? What can I do to help a Black or minority business owner shop Black? Spend your dollars with Black minority-owned business owners, and that includes women, because there's a lot of women out here that needs your support, and we fall under the minority umbrella. Did you know that? Yes, we do. Remember, it is time to change the narrative, and you can help us do that by supporting Black and minority business owners.